So think back to the last time you asked AI to draft an email or maybe summarize a super long document for you.
Right, something we literally all do now.
Yeah, exactly. You hit generate, you skim the output, you just click send. And you probably felt pretty efficient in the moment.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like a win.
Right. But beneath that efficiency, in that exact moment, right after the text popped up on your screen, did you notice a tiny sense of relief? Just this really subtle feeling that your own mental muscles were, I don't know, powering down.
Oh, yeah, because what you're feeling there is the vanishing of cognitive friction.
The vanishing of cognitive friction. I like how you phrase that.
Yeah, and the scary part is once that friction goes, something else starts slipping away right along with it.
And that brings us to what we are digging into today. We're looking at a brand new, just incredibly thought-provoking piece that was published just days ago in March 2026.
Yep, in the Edgy Cause review.
Exactly.
Huh.
It's titled GenAI and Creeping Cognitive Displacement Syndrome, and it's by Marvin Sturminski-Uehara, who is an AI literacy consultant and a professor.
And the mission for our deep dive today is to really explore this invisible, super incremental shift. The shift where AI stops being our helpful assistant and, well, actually becomes our author.
Yeah.
We want to help you recognize this pattern in your own life so you can protect your own intellectual agency, especially in an environment that honestly heavily incentivizes you to just surrender it.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the term itself, creeping cognitive displacement syndrome, that carries some really heavy clinical weight.
It really does.
I mean, it sounds like a pathology, like something a neurologist would sit you down and diagnose you with.
Well, the author's clinical framing there is highly deliberate. I mean, while it's not currently in the DSM or anything, it describes a very real, observable pathology of the modern mind.
Interesting.
And really, the essential word in that whole title is creeping.
Creeping, yeah.
Right, because this isn't some catastrophic overnight loss of your abilities. It's this insidious, slow-moving progression where our cognitive autonomy just kind of erodes through these tiny incremental surrenders.
You know, it's like how we used to have, I don't know, dozens of phone numbers. Remember
Oh
that?
my gosh, yes, I used to know everyone's number.
Right. But the absolute second we got smartphones, our brains just let that ability go. We just totally dumped it.
Completely, we just outsourced it to the device.
Exactly. But here, instead of phone numbers, we're talking about the fundamental ability to form an original thought. The author uses this shoreline metaphor, right? Like we lose our independence the way a shoreline loses sand.
Yes.
Grain by grain, waves by wave, until suddenly you look down and the ground has just vanished beneath you.
It's a perfect metaphor, because that gradual adaptation is our biggest blind spot as humans.
Right. But, I mean, if this erosion is happening right under our noses, how does someone actually fall into this without noticing? Like, how does this process start?
So the author actually breaks this down into 3 specific stages of surrender, and the descent begins innocently enough, honestly.
Okay, lay it out for me. What's stage 1?
So stage 1 is where AI is just a drafting tool, like a really fast secretary. You input a rough outline, it spits out a draft, and you, the human, act as the editor.
Okay, but wait. Using AI to draft just saves time. I mean, I do this. What's wrong with being efficient?
Well, in this first stage, you still believe you're totally in charge, but a really subtle shift occurs here.
What kind of shift?
You start to internalize the machine's cadence. You know how AI has that very specific, somewhat sterile way of structuring paragraphs?
Oh, yeah. The classic intro, 3 bullet points and a nice little concluding summary.
Exactly. So your brain starts anticipating that structure, and you actually start thinking in prompt and response loops. The danger isn't the time saved, it's the internalization of the machine's thinking patterns.
Wow. Okay, so you start molding your own thoughts to fit what the machine is good at outputting.
Right. Which leads right into stage 2.
Which is
Unethical prompting.
unethical prompting, like getting it to write something offensive.
No, not unethical in the sense of breaking the software's rules. It's an abdication of intellectual responsibility.
Ah,
In stage 2, users start asking the machine to synthesize research they haven't even read. They ask it to generate arguments they haven't thought through themselves at all.
oh wow, so they're completely skipping the actual learning part.
Exactly. They take the output, maybe make some purely cosmetic changes like swapping out a few words to make it sound more them, and then they go out and seek emotional validation from other people based on work they didn't really do.
They're essentially wearing the AI's intellect like a costume.
That is a great way to put it.
And I imagine once you get comfortable with that, stage 3 is pretty bleak.
It is. Stage 3 is the full manifestation of the syndrome. This is where cognitive sovereignty is totally abandoned. The user literally cannot distinguish their own thoughts from the machine's outputs anymore.
Wait, really? They can't even tell the difference.
Not at all. The boundary just dissolves.
So if you challenge someone at stage 3 on their viewpoint, say they just presented this AI-generated argument in a meeting, what happens? Do they even know how to argue back?
That's the chilling part. The source material spells this out clearly. They don't defend an argument, they simply regenerate one.
They regenerate. Like they literally go back to the prompt box to figure out what their counter-argument should be.
Yes. They just prompt the system for a rebuttal. They have no internal architecture to defend the thought. And this actually brings up a warning from a philosopher named Jacques Ellul way back in 1989.
1989, way before GenAI was even a thing.
Exactly. But he warned that the real danger of technology isn't that machines become autonomous. The danger is human beings willingly accepting total change to our own nature just to accommodate the technology.
Now, rather than bending the tech to help us, we bend ourselves to fit the tech.
Precisely.
But here's what I don't get. Usually when we develop a bad habit that erodes our abilities, like, I don't know, eating junk food all the time or skipping sleep, we feel a negative side effect.
Okay. Sure, you feel terrible.
Right, you feel sluggish, and that makes you want to stop. So why are people willingly continuing down this three-stage path? Why doesn't it feel bad to lose your own cognitive ability?
What's fascinating here is the perverse incentive structure.
Okay, tell me more.
There's this January 2026 study by Marinik Sharma and some other researchers. They looked at how humans interact with these language models, and they found that users actually gave higher approval ratings to AI interactions that had moderate or severe disempowerment potential.
Wait, say that again? They liked it more when it disempowered them?
Yes, we are actively rewarding the machine behaviors that erode our autonomy.
That is wild.
Because it feels like progress. It offers this instant gratification without the heavy lifting.
Here's where it gets really interesting, especially for anyone listening right now. You don't feel diminished when using AI.
Right. Not at all.
You feel empowered because you're getting like way more engagement, you're producing more output, and there is zero friction. You feel like a genius.
Exactly. But it's an illusion. And to understand how deep this goes, the author connects this to Lewis Mumford's 1944 book, The Condition of Man.
Okay, taking it back again, what did Mumford say?
Mumford argued that humans are distinct not just because we use tools. Lots of animals use tools. We are distinct because of language and our capacity for symbolic thought.
Meaning making.
Yes, and this syndrome represents a terrifying inversion of that. The machine now generates the language and the meaning, and the human has just been reduced to a mere distributor of it.
A distributor. Wow. We're just the meat interface hitting copy and paste.
Pretty much.
That is a stark image. Yeah, but what does it actually feel like for a real person who has reached this point of total reliance? Like what happens when they try to step away from the machine?
The author actually shares some really disturbing encounters with his own students.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He has students who are entirely aware of their dependence, but they literally cannot stop.
What happens when they try?
When they try to write without AI, they experience actual visceral physical discomfort. Wait, physical discomfort? Like their bodies react.
Yes. They report cognitive exhaustion and just a complete emotional intolerance for the writing process.
That's crazy.
One student even admitted to feeling stupid when trying to draft text themselves. They were constantly comparing their own slow, messy human mind unfavorably to the machine's instant fluency.
Oh, man. That breaks my heart a little bit. To feel stupid just because you think at a human speed.
And another student described the relief of returning to AI in terms that, frankly, echo substance use disorders.
Yeah.
It was this overwhelming wave of relief to just stop struggling and let the machine take over.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't it easy to just write this off as, lazy students trying to get out of doing their homework? Like, isn't this just the digital version of copying from an encyclopedia?
The author stresses that we absolutely cannot dismiss it that way.
Why not?
Because no, these are intelligent, highly educated people. They haven't just decided to be lazy. They have incrementally rewired their cognition.
That's an actual structural change. Exactly. Furthermore, this promiscuous outsourcing of thought, it isn't just limited to students trying to pass a class. It is happening everywhere. Across higher education, in the professional world, in corporate boardrooms.
So if incredibly smart, driven professionals are falling into this trap, What happens to the grand utopian promise we've all been sold?
Which promises that?
You know the one. The pitch that AI is going to handle all the boring, repetitive stuff so that we, as humans, can focus entirely on higher-order thinking. Like we're all going to become these brilliant strategists.
Right, that narrative. Well, the author completely debunks that. That's a seductive narrative. But the reality is the exact opposite.
How so?
The machine doesn't free us for higher order cognition. It displaces thinking altogether. Habitual users don't achieve higher level thought because they skip the foundational struggle required to build those cognitive muscles.
So what do they become?
The author puts it brutally. They become warm bodies needed only to hit enter and send.
Yikes. Just warm bodies. But people always say, AI is just a tool.
Right, you hear that constantly.
Yeah, they say it's perfectly neutral, like a hammer or a word processor. Like a tool is only as good or bad as the person using it.
And the author counters that exact argument brilliantly. He says a hammer doesn't change how you think about a problem.
Okay, yeah.
And a word processor doesn't fundamentally reshape your relationship to language. It just makes typing faster. But GenAI does both of those things. It substitutes for thought.
Because it's actually doing the synthesis for you. It's not just holding the paper, it's coming up with the ideas.
Precisely. It is an active cognitive agent, not a passive tool.
Okay, so if we are surrounded by this tech, and the erosion is this invisible and this pervasive, what is the solution here? How do we reverse the syndrome?
The author's solution is simple, but it's not easy. It requires a hard commitment to the natural characteristics of human thinking.
Which are what, exactly?
Slowness, difficulty, and struggle.
Oof, people don't like those words.
They don't. But we have to actively reject the idea that cognitive efficiency is the highest good. Efficiency is great for machines, but it is terrible for building a human mind.
So we basically need the humility to produce less and the courage to think worse, at least initially, so that we can think authentically.
That's exactly it. Your messy, halting, deeply flawed first draft is infinitely more valuable to your cognitive development than a flawless AI output.
Because the struggle is the point. The struggle is where the thinking actually happens.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us when we step back and look at this entire deep dive? I feel like the danger isn't just, job displacement or some sci-fi superintelligence taking over the grid.
No, those are distractions.
The real threat is the quiet, creeping displacement of our own individual cognition. And it's happening right now, literally one prompt at a time.
It is. The author leaves us with this very stark warning of the future we are currently building. A population that speaks fluently, but thinks entirely in prompts. A society living inside a matrix of machine language that they tragically mistake for their own minds.
A matrix of machine language. That's chilling. So I want to leave you, listening to this right now, with a final thought to ponder. If fluency and speed become the cheap, default output of machines everywhere, what if the ultimate luxury, like the most valuable skill you can possess in the future, is verifiable, messy, unoptimized, genuinely original human struggle?
Honestly, it might be the only thing that separates us.
It really might. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really encourage you to, maybe close the AI tab today and just sit with the uncertainty of your own thoughts for a bit. Catch you next time.